Number 10, a phone number? Yep, that's right. Getting a hold of a demon is even easier. Not only can you call them forth with white chalk circles and the blood of a virgin, you can also just use your cell phone, though the consequences may be deadly. If you are deciding to change your number, choose anything but 0888-888-888. This number has a history of dead bodies behind it and you don't want to be next. The first person to have this number was Mobitel CEO Vladimir Grashnov, who died of cancer at age 48 in 2001. Now, we all know cancer to be one of the worst diseases on the planet, and worse yet, it can affect just anyone. So you may be thinking, though sad, his death is not unheard of. But then the number was passed on to a Bulgarian mob boss who was assassinated in 2003. Okay, he had it coming. But then how do we explain the sudden violent death of the number's next owner, Konstantin Dishlev, who was shot outside of a restaurant in 2005? Since then, the number has been suspended after the amount of bodies that followed it couldn't be ignored. Many believe that this number carried with it a demonic presence, condemning all its owners to death. Ooh, we don't know. Number 9, the Dark Mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, be you cursed or not at all? Mirrors, although a resource for vanity, carry a lot of lore alongside them. From vampires to seers and doorways to parallel universes, mirrors aren't always what they appear to be. The Dark Mirror is a real object that looks like it came straight out of Harry Potter's Borgin and Burkes. It was purchased by its first owner at the Columbus Psychic Fair, so no wonder. Intended to be used as a scrying mirror, so like a crystal ball. The owner reported nothing but disturbing images and terrible visions. Now it sits in a traveling museum where even visitors report seeing horrid images such as their own corpse or those of loved ones not yet dead. Not only does it look terrifying, but whatever left this object behind had something dark planned, and it should only take one guess as to what it was. A demon. Number 8. The Annabelle doll. Duh. Of course this doll was left behind by a demon. It was possessed by one, after all. Thanks to the movie series, this doll has become one of the reasons people have an aversion to them in the first place. I know I do. I remember American Girl dolls, my friend was obsessed with them and I couldn't get over their dark, beady little eyes, Unlike the movies, Annabelle was actually a vintage Raggedy Ann doll that a woman named Donna received as a gift from her mom. That's nice. But the strange thing was, it had a tendency to move around the apartment. One minute it would be sitting on the bed, the next it would be on a couch or have its legs crossed. She suddenly started finding notes reading help in the apartment and came home one night to see the doll covered in a mysterious red substance, probably blood. We don't know. They contacted a medium who said the doll was simply haunted by a girl who passed away in the building. The doll allegedly killed their friend Lou when he got up to investigate noises after he voiced concerns about the doll. So that's when the Warrens got involved. The Warrens detected a sinister presence, a demonic being, a demonic one, straight from hell. And after a botched exorcism, the Warrens decided to keep it secure in a glass box at their Connecticut museum. That's one bit I never understood about that part. Why was their reaction after the exorcism failed to keep it and go, nah, we'll just keep it in a glass box so its beady little doll eyes will stare at the guests walking past. Anyways. Moving on. Number 7, superhuman strength. Many people who claim to have been possessed by demons claim they were left with a kind of supernatural strength. Ivy League educated, board certified psychiatrist Dr. Richard Gallagher witnessed this firsthand. Somehow this proud man of science became the church's go-to guy whenever there was an exorcism. Whenever someone tries to convince the church that they're possessed by a demon or know someone who is, they're sent to Gallagher for a mental evaluation. But in this interview with CNN, Richard never expected to see some of the things he did. But one of the most unexplainable things was the strength of one of his own patients. Gallagher says, and I quote from the interview, quote, "There was one woman who was 90 pounds soaking wet. She threw a Lutheran deacon who was about 200 pounds across the room. That's not psychiatry. That's beyond psychiatry," unquote. The doctor is now a firm believer in the affliction and has even more stories to tell, but this was one moment that stuck with him forever. Number 6, overturned crucifixes. One of the more common signs of a demon having visited are overturned crucifixes. Imagine seeing a picture of your ex while visiting your family, or maybe they're famous and their pictures are everywhere. You'd probably want to put that picture frame face down so you'd never have to see it again. This demons can relate to, especially when you're a fallen angel who got kicked out of heaven. Seeing a sign of your old dad would probably piss you off, especially considering how famous God is and all. Many followers of Catholicism hang crucifixes boxes around the house to ward off demons, but if one has chosen to visit, you may find one, if not all of them, flipped upside down to honor the guy below, so watch out for that. Number 5, sulfur. Have you ever smelled rotten eggs out of nowhere? Well, I'm here to tell you that demons fart too. Yep. They're just like us. Demonic spirits tend to leave behind the scent of sulfur because, you know, they're from the burning pits of hell and it smells like rotten eggs down there. You remember that scene from Shrek where Donkey thinks Shrek let one rip? Yeah. Brimstone is the biblical word for sulfur. So if you suddenly pick up that scent, do these 3 things. 1, check to see if someone is peeling some hard-boiled eggs. 2, ask your friend or whoever is beside you if they let one rip. 3, if the answers to 1 and 2 are no, then get to the church ASAP Rocky. Regarding number 2, make sure you surround yourself with the kinds of friends you know you could get a straight answer from about that. You know, no one needs that kind of doubt when demons are at play. Number 4, unexplained bites and scratch marks. Ever woken up with a scratch you couldn't explain or a bruise you didn't know you got? Well, I'm sorry to say that unless you sleep like this, then you probably were visited by a demonic presence, or at least a ghost. In an attempt to possess or torment you, restless spirits will try to cause you harm if they can't enter your body. So if you do sleep like, then make sure to keep your nails filed so you can distinguish between accident and evil. Number 3, the Antichrist. Many evil people on this earth have been accused of being the Antichrist, from Osama bin Laden to Rasputin and even a couple of popes. But what is the Antichrist? Well, he's the son of Satan. The Antichrist is prophesied to be the complete opposite to Jesus, said to be born of a woman who lies about her virtue. So, in a way, Satan, as the king of demons himself, leaves behind his spawn to wreak havoc on the earth. Also known as the lawless man and son of perdition, Christian lore has evolved this theory into categorizing anyone who fits the bill as an Antichrist. An easy identifier is someone in power who seeks to oppress and destroy the good and the poor. I'm sure a couple names come into mind. Number 2, poltergeists. So, many people know poltergeists to be ghosts on steroids, basically. They're angry, vengeful spirits that just love to mess with your shit, essentially. They are literally able to pinch, bite, break, and attack humans as well as break your TV. But many people don't believe they aren't just ghosts, but something more, like a demon or the psychic energy left by one. They are very similar to succubuses, who are a kind of demon that feed off your energy. So, like Dementors from Harry Potter. Man, that's 2 Harry Potter references in one video. Are we impressed? I think so. Anyway, since demons are drawn to those who are tormented by, let's say, depression, this seems like a pretty likely idea. Some theorize it's a kind of residual demonic possession that a living person is unknowingly controlling. Number 1, night terrors. One of the most terrifying nightmares I ever had in my life involved demons, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was so creepy. It was so real. It clung to me all day until my friend offered to help me cleanse my room, and I was like, no! Now that makes it real. But the creepy part about nightmares is that throughout history, there are a series of patterns that reoccur depicting demons involved with nightmares or night terrors. A great example is the painting The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli, which depicts an ape-like creature sitting on the chest of a sleeping woman. Anyone who's ever experienced a night terror, not to be confused with nightmare, knows how terrifying they are. Your body literally freezes in a state called sleep paralysis, and you essentially dream while you're awake, unable to move. During this state, you could be visited by sleep demons, 1 of 3 to be exact. A documentary called Nightmare reviews the 3 most common demonic images people see while in this state: a man in a hat, a shadow figure, and a cat with red eyes. If that's not a demonic visitation, then I don't know what is. Number 10, the Screaming Skull. Wherever there is tragedy and violence, demons love to live there, which could be the case for Agnes Hall. This magnificent hall was built in the early 17th century by Sir Henry Griffith and his 3 daughters. The youngest, Anne, was particularly fond of it and developed a very strong attachment to it immediately. She was excited for their life there, but one day she came across robbers who took everything she had and left her severely beaten. By the time she was discovered, it was too late to save her and she fell into a fever. In her final hours, she made her sisters promise to bring her head into the house so that a piece of her would always be there and that she'd be able to see the final product. They didn't do what she asked until each night they heard screams of pain and anguish. Finally, they brought her skull into the house thinking that would help, but strangely when they dug her up, the head was already detached and clean of flesh. They concealed it within the walls and the screams discontinued, but some even say you can still see Anne walking around the grounds. I mean, technically a ghost, but Why was her head detached? Why was there no flesh? I'm just saying that's creepy and very demonic to me. So anyways, moving on. Number 9. The Hand Resist Him painting. One of my absolute favorite books is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I love it. It tells the story of a man whose soul is trapped inside of a painting. In a way, that's what we're trying to do every time we take a picture, or in this case, paint one. We want to preserve a moment in time so it never ages. The Hand Resist Him painting by Bill Stoneham tried to do just that, but instead, he released something dark and twisted into the world. The painting is an artistic interpretation of a photo taken of him and one of his neighbors when they were kids. The hands behind the glass represented his unknown family, as Stoneham was adopted. Each time the painting changed hands, someone died, including Godfather actor John Marley. It resurfaced after it was abandoned in an old brewery turned art gallery and was sold to a family on eBay. Not long after that though, their children started screaming, saying that the children in the painting would come into their rooms and fight. The father set up a camera to prove nothing happened so that he could be like, kids, calm down. But then, he saw in the video the boy in the painting move. We all know demons like to attach themselves to pain and sorrow. What if while bringing this piece to life, he also allowed for something else to come through as well? Number 8. The Anguished Man painting. You may have heard and seen the famous The Scream painting. You know that one? But though this one looks similar, it is far more terrifying. Remember that Dorian Gray thing? Well, this is kind of like that, but also more like the Velvet Buzzsaw with Toni Collette and Jake Gyllenhaal. Great movie, by the way. Very scary. Well, it looks like the artist basically did just that, minus the immortality. Sean Robinson inherited this painting from his grandmother, who said that the artist had mixed their own blood with the paint. Shortly after it was completed, the artist took his own life, and that is all people seem to know of its origin or the artist. But right there, you've already got some prime ingredients for demonic possession: grief, misery, and death. As soon as the painting arrived in the house, strange things started happening. At night, they heard someone crawling across the floor, crying, banging, and screaming could be heard. And then there's this video that Sean set up to record any strange happenings. His wife and dog are totally creeped out by it, his wife having felt a presence touch her multiple times in the house, and the dog won't go near it. And I think we all know if a dog won't go near someone or something, it's not to be trusted. It's bad news. They got the sense, they know. Number 7, the Letta doll. Last time we talked about Annabelle, but get ready for Letta. Letta has to be one of the creepiest dolls of all time. Like, she looks like where Annabelle doesn't look creepy, Letta does. Letta was found underneath an abandoned house in New South Wales. The doll is said to be over 200 years old and has a head of real human hair. Also, look at this doll. If it doesn't give you the absolute creeps, I don't know what will. You've got like a liver of steel, who knows. Mr. Walton became one of Letta's owners and soon started to notice some pretty strange events. Guests coming over to the house would suddenly feel sick and disturbed when they were around the doll. Walton himself noticed scuffs on the floor leading to Letta as if they'd gotten up and walked around. Some say the spirit of a young boy who drowned is tied to the doll, while others believe it's something far more powerful. Jury is still out as to whether this doll is possessed by one of the bad guys, aka awful demons, or a good guy. Some even kiss Letta for luck. I wouldn't kiss that doll. Just saying. Alright, number 6. Thomas Busby's chair. For many, a local pub can feel like home. And it was no different for Thomas Busby, an infamous killer delighted with his crimes. He was set to hang for his crimes in 1702, and for his last meal he asked that he be served in his favorite pub in Thirsk, England. After he stood up, he said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." Now, if you're evil enough in life, chances are you'll come back as a demon. Throwback to Asmodeus. The chair remained in the pub for centuries, locals daring each other to sit in it. But it wasn't until World War II that people noticed that any soldier who sat there wouldn't return from war. I mean, the odds were against them. But from there, a roofer, 2 pilots, a mason, and a cleaning lady all died mysteriously in sudden deaths after they'd sat in the chair, and the death toll kept rising. Eventually the chair was donated to a museum in 1972 and was hung on the wall so it could not claim another soul. Number 5. The Chained Oak. This story is a kind of weird hybrid between Beauty and the Beast and a banshee and a demon, just a lot. The Chained Oak tree is a tree literally wrapped in chains in Alton, Staffordshire, England. Legend goes that the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury was riding past it when he came across an old beggar woman. As the Earl passed by, he shunned her pleas for money, and as a result, she cursed him. Or maybe if she was a demon, he fell prey to a plan she had all along. For every branch that fell from the tree, a member of his family would die. No sooner did one of the branches break off during the storm did he lose a loved one. So he chained up the tree to prevent any more from falling. Though the family is long since gone, people say to be wary of approaching in case that same old beggar woman picks you next. Number 4. The Woman from Lem statue. The Woman of Lem statue was discovered in 1878 in Lem, Cyprus. And if there's anything that should have stayed buried, probably this thing. Carved of pure limestone, it dates back to 3500 BC and is believed to represent a fertility goddess. Because she's curvy. She got curves for days. The first rumors of demonic activity surfaced after the first owner, Lord Elfont, experienced all 7 members of his family dying of mysterious diseases within the first 6 years he owned it. The same thing happened to the next 2 owners, Ivor Minucci and Lord Thompson Noel, who died along with their entire families. It wasn't until the 4th owner, Sir Alan Biverbrooke, died along with his wife that their sons donated the item to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. You can guess what happened next. The chief of the section where the statue dwelled suddenly died, and no one has handled the statue since. It just stays in a little glass box. Wherever this object goes, whoever touches it, death surely follows, and even skeptics can't deny that these deadly consequences have otherworldly hands. Number 3. The Cage. This place is an absolute breeding ground for demonic activity considering its history of witchcraft and brutal deaths. The Cage is one of the most haunted places in Essex, having used to be a prison filled with women considered to be witches. An important one to know was Ursula Kemp. She was a healer, nursemaid, and was said to be able to remove curses from those hexed and provide healing drafts to the sick. She was a good person. But then someone got jealous and they accused her of being a witch along with 14 other women, and they were all hanged with their children left behind. Now a cottage, Vanessa Mitchell bought the property in 2005 and swears it's not just haunted, may have something darker inhabiting it. Along with the typical doors opening and shutting, technical difficulties, pots and pans flying, Vanessa constantly saw shadow people. It continued to escalate and happened at all hours of the day. The final straw was when she caught the image of a satanic goat-like image on camera. We all know what that means. Number 2. Abandoned homes. If you've ever heard or seen an abandoned house, chances are it's like that for a very demonic reason. If you've been with this channel for a while, then you know the deal. Today, I'm going to be talking about one house that was so badly haunted, it was condemned. Latoya Ammons and her 3 children lived in a home on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Large black flies started swarming around the family's screened-in porch, and at night the family would hear footsteps and even saw shadowy figures. This is a sighting that paranormal investigators agree is a sure sign of a demon, not a specter. Ammons even claims that she once saw her 12-year-old daughter levitate above her bed. Clairvoyants soon discovered that the house wasn't just haunted by 1, but 200 demons. Zach Baggins, the executive producer of Ghost Adventurers, ended up buying the house from them and had it destroyed, saying, and I quote, "Something was inside that house that had the ability to do things that I have never seen before. Things that others carrying the highest forms of credibility couldn't explain either. There was something there that was very dark, yet highly intelligent and powerful." Unquote. Number 1. Stull Cemetery. Stull Cemetery in Kansas isn't your typical cemetery, though it looks like it. It has so much activity that many believe that it is in fact a gateway to hell. It is said to be so evil that even the Pope charters his plane around it, not over it. Every year, tourists flock to the cemetery in order to see if the devil will appear on Halloween. They even have to have police to protect him. This is clearly a place that demons created and where they originate from, and curse all those who pass. Even the beloved Ariana Grande had an encounter she will never forget. From disturbing pictures to shadows, Ariana swears the place is haunted by something no one should mess with. Paranormal investigators from Planet Weird checked out Stull Cemetery, and this is their experience.
We're here at Stull Cemetery now, and it's on fire. There's literal fires, patches of them all over the cemetery. It's not a controlled burn. We don't know where it's coming from. There's no bonfire anywhere.
What's most terrifying about the cemetery is not the fact that demons may have left it behind, but that they are still clearly living there. Number 10, the Hope Diamond. If you're looking to splurge on a gift for your loved one because you have all the money in the world, maybe look elsewhere. This bling is deadly. The Hope Diamond offers anything but to whomever owns it. The 115-carat blue diamond was stolen from a Hindu idol in India by French merchant Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. Darkness latched onto the precious jewel and brought bad luck and death to all who touched it. The first to die, of course, was Tavernier himself, quite brutally as he was mauled to death. Then the diamond fell into the hands of King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. And we all know what happened to them. They loved it so much they lost their heads about it. Ooh. Next was Lord Francis Hope, who this diamond is named after, died destitute after his fortune was squandered. Then socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean met tragedy after tragedy. Her son died in a car crash, her daughter took her own life, and Evelyn herself ended up in an asylum. Ugh. Now it sits in the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, locked away so whatever spirit's inside it can't hurt anyone else. Number 9, Robert the Doll. It is actually impossible to do a list like this and not mention a haunted doll. If I have to do a next one, I don't think there's any left, but we'll see. If I ever have children, dolls are out of the question. They're not getting dolls, it's not happening. Demons like them too much. Robert the Doll is another demonic doll that shouldn't be messed with. The story begins in 1896 in Key West, Florida, when a boy named Robert Eugene Otto received this as a gift from one of the family's servants who hated their masters since, well, slavery. Fair enough. Robert loved this doll. They became fast friends and they hung out all the time, all hours of the day, playing and chatting. But then servants heard the doll talk back. Neighbors of the house also reported seeing the doll move from room to room when no one was home. Suddenly Robert started getting blamed for rooms being messed up, vases smashing, furniture being destroyed, but he insisted it was the doll, not him. The boy started to become so terrified of the doll that he hid it in the attic. Robert inherited the house and lived there until 1972 until he passed away, making room for a young family to move in. A little girl found the doll in the attic and immediately sensed something was wrong with it. She said the doll wanted to kill her, and so the family gave it to a local art gallery / museum in Key West. But if you visit, remember to ask the doll, now known as Robert, before you take a picture, otherwise you will walk away cursed. Beside the display are letters from people who didn't ask first and now apologizing to the doll. People assume the doll is haunted by the boy who loved him, but considering the activity started before he died, many people believe that whoever made it put a demon inside. That makes sense to me. Number 8, the Bassano vase. The Bassano vase is a beautiful piece of craftsmanship carved in silver from the 15th century. This exquisite vase was made as a gift for an Italian bride and given to her the night before the wedding, but the next day she never made it to the chapel as she was killed the night before. Thus, the first act in the curse was born. The vase was then passed down through the family, but after each new owner died, it was hidden away to prevent any more death. But in 1988, it was rediscovered with a note inside with a very clear warning: beware, this vase brings death. Huh. Maybe you should heed that warning, but of course they didn't. The vase went up for auction and a pharmacist purchased it. Not long after though, he perished. 4 more deaths occurred before a family threw it out a window hoping to break it, but instead it fell at the feet of a policeman who tried to return it, but the family was like, no thank you, not a thing we want. Instead they asked him to bury it where no one could find it, and it remains in an undisclosed location to this day. Again, no one knows who made this piece, but rumors of demonic creations surround it, meaning that not only do those who own it die, but their souls are taken by the demon who possesses it. Thank God we don't know where it is. Number 7, the Crying Boy paintings. The Crying Boy paintings were a series of paintings created by Italian painter Giovanni Bragolin, or his actual name Bruno Amadio, of orphan children after World War II. They became especially popular in England as many of the paintings were mass produced. But somewhere along the way, these pieces of art began to carry deadly consequences. A fireman noticed a very peculiar, ominous pattern. In the 1980s, a vicious fire swept the home of Ron and Mary Hall in South Yorkshire, England. The entire house house, the entire house, was charred black, save for a painting they had of a crying boy. This wasn't the only time, and in 1985, this fireman reported to the media that these paintings had survived over 50 deadly fires across the UK. Wherever there was a fire, Amadio's art followed and was found unscathed amid the ashes. One theory suggests that one of the paintings was of a boy in Spain who accidentally set his house on fire, killing his parents. Somehow, the spirit of this boy infected each and every piece, and wherever it goes, tragedy is sure to follow. But can a simple ghost cause this much widespread damage? Demon or spirit, perhaps think twice before hanging this painting in your home. Or at least have like a fire extinguisher handy. Always. Number 6, the Skirrid Inn. By now you all know that if you want to attract a demon to a certain place, there has to have been some kind of dark magic and a lot of death. The Skirrid Inn in Wales, upon first glance, looks like a great place to enjoy some classic pub fare and a bitter ale. That sounds good. But looks can be deceiving, as this place used to be the site of public hangings. Seems like a weird place for a pub now, doesn't it? The upper part of the inn used to be a courthouse where people were tried, convicted, and then, if the case was made, executed on site. It is estimated that around 180 hangings took place right on the spot. They've even kept the original hanging beam, and the grooves of where the rope wore into the wood can be seen. Additionally, the inn has chosen to keep the original cell where the prisoners were kept. Both grim choices for decor, I'd say. There's also a noose hanging somewhere as well. Why? As a result, of course, many patrons have had experiences that they just can't forget, from sudden extreme drops in temperature to the feeling of a rope being tied around their neck, and occasionally dark, shadowy figures, and we all know who they are. Demons. If you didn't guess. Number 5, Highgate Cemetery. One of the things I absolutely love about visiting places like England and Europe in general is the sense of the deep, rich history it carries. You can almost feel the people who walked before you on the centuries-old cobblestone streets. Oh, there's nothing like it. But of course, for all those who came before, there's plenty who died. Highgate Cemetery in London is one such place where both people who suffered or died peacefully lie. It is rife with lore of hauntings, ghouls, and demons. The Highgate Vampire is one such creature many have reported seeing since the 1960s. 2 girls reported seeing the dead rise from the graves while walking through Swains Lane one night. Next, animal carcasses turned up entirely drained of blood, and then once the media got hold, a vampire craze swept the city and 2 magicians began competing to see who could catch the creature first. The craze came to a head on Friday, April 13th, of course, Friday the 13th, in 1973, when a vampire hunt was organized and bodies were exhumed and then beheaded. This actually happened. This is a real thing. Legends of the demons still continue, along with sightings of a crazed old woman and of corpses appearing in places they shouldn't be. So, good lord, there's too many things they left behind. We have no idea. Number 4, the Isle of Demons. The Isle of Demons appears to be an island that comes and goes as it pleases. It is associated with Quirpon Island in Newfoundland, Canada. It began to appear on maps in the 16th century, but by the 17th century, it disappeared from maps altogether. This island was believed to be a haven for demons and beasts who would emerge to torment and destroy ships. One tale of forbidden love also haunts the island, as a French noblewoman named Marguerite de la Roque and her lover were marooned there. The sailors had heard of the tales, and when they heard of Marguerite's impious behavior, they sentenced her to die at the hands of demons. Both her lover and their child perished on the island, but Marguerite was saved years later, though she never spoke of what she indeed saw on the island. But if you just so happen to catch the island in the mist, reports from sailors say you just might see a woman and a man wandering the shores of the Island of Demons. We're coming up to our top 3, guys, but before we continue, if you like this video and want to see more, you know what works. Smash that like button because it lets us know you like us. And we like you. Let's continue. Number 3, the Hellfire Caves. Oh boy. The Hellfire Club was a famous club spoken about in hushed corners away from pious ears. It was essentially a meeting place for high society types in the 1700s who desired to perform immoral acts. In other words, it's where rich people got really kinky. The man-made chalk caves in West Wycombe, England was the chosen location for the Hellfire Club, specifically the group belonging to Sir Francis Dashwood, a politician, chancellor, and an overall rake. A rake being someone who lived immorally. They did everything. Hired women of the night to dress up as nuns and performed mock religious ceremonies, even performed satanic rituals over the naked bodies of aristocratic ladies. Ugh, the caves, whoo, like, oh my goodness. The caves trace for a mile on what used to be Dashwood's estate and were built to help build a road. A river they named Styx also runs at the bottom of the caves, named after, of course, the River of Styx from Greek mythology. Demonic activity is said to be rife within the caves, with terrifying faces etched onto the walls and feelings of being watched. Number 2, the Demon Church. St. Botolph's Church in Lincolnshire, England may look like your typical old place of worship, but just exactly what they worship within those walls is far darker than you may think. The church was abandoned in 1973, and in the following years, it became a haven instead for all those who worshipped Satan. All kinds of dark ceremonies happened there, including those involving animal sacrifices. Who knows what else, but many stay away if they can resist their curiosity. Many people believe that the Satanists may have opened a portal to hell or unleashed something into this world that they couldn't put back. So now it is infamously known as the Demon Church. Number 1, Castle Huska. We talked about Stull Cemetery last time as a gateway to hell, but Castle Huska in Prague once welcomed the devil himself. It is the only place in the world where people say the devil appeared in a hole in the ground. Legend says that the castle is actually built on a gateway to hell and that it cracked open in 878 AD. It is said that winged half-human beasts came from the hole, so they built a castle to keep the creatures within. Though it may look normal from afar, the windows in the castle are actually fake, making it clear that this place is not meant to be lived in. When construction first began, prisoners in the village would be offered a pardon if they agreed to be lowered by rope into the hole. The first man to attempt it was tied up and lowered. After a few moments in the darkness, the man began screaming and begged to be pulled up. By the time they hauled him up, he looked as though he aged 30 years. His hair was white and his skin was creased and speckled. They tried to discover what he had seen, but the man was incoherent. He was later put into an insane asylum, but died 2 days later. If you were a prisoner at the time, would you have said yes? I think I probably would. I don't know, I would have just like made a show at the bottom and been like, oh no, unless there were actually demons, then I'd be like, cool.